Hi all, thanks for tuning in. It's been a few weeks since I've posted. I have a lot to say and a lot that I want to share with you. It's just a matter of time to write my notes and scripts and sit down and record when I have a moment to myself. Today I wanted to talk about what it means to be ready or to be getting prepared for collapse, or if you're not attached to that term, for any difficult times ahead. And I was thinking about how preparedness is not just a one-off thing, and it's not just the popular practical projects like building a pantry and installing a rainwater tank. It's much more than that. It's about how we show love for our future selves. And I also wanted to discuss how it relates to the productivity and self-help literature that I've seen in a way that I'm still working out, but I'd like to discuss it with you today and also hear your thoughts. So here's what I think. Part of preparedness is doing what will be done eventually, or will probably be done eventually, but doing it now. I addressed this point briefly in my video about whether prepping speeds up collapse, but as an individual, having you and your family prepared, I think is really important. And doing things that you would do eventually and doing them now and not putting them off is vital to preparedness. It's not just buying stuff. It's not just being self-reliant on inputs. It's also a matter of just generally being on top of things in your life. A mini example of preparedness expanded to everyday life for me is packing my daughter's lunchbox the night before. Every evening when she comes home from school, I unpack it, clean out the little containers, and then I pack it with her lunch for the next day and put it in the fridge. I could leave it till the next morning, but that's a little form of preparedness because I used to make it every morning, but I'm not a morning person and I don't always learn that lesson. But even if we're in a rush in the morning for some reason, if I've packed it the night before, she can just go and grab it and easy done. So doing things that my future self will thank me for is a form of preparedness. Making sure that I exercise, for example, is a form of preparedness. We know that physical fitness is a form of emergency preparedness as well, and I will put a video out on that specifically. Part of preparedness is doing the hard stuff now so that you can do the easy things later. In fitness and sort of some of the health and well-being spaces, they say you have to pick your hard. Pick what is hard to do now, or you'll be forced to do the hard things later. It is hard to exercise, but it is harder to be unfit in later life, or to be unfit when you need to be hauling wood and water for your family or walking a long distance in an emergency. I like to think about treating your future self and current self as two different people, as a way to help yourself act with the future in mind. I try to treat my future self as a dear friend or a loved one, and I think to myself, oh, that's going to help them out so much if I do that. The fact that I've purchased tinned pineapple for our needs well into the future means that when I go and make a pizza on a Friday night, as I do most Friday nights, we've got pineapple ready to go. Quite a few times in the past, I've gone to make pizza and I've realized we don't have pineapple. I've gone, well, I'm not going to go to the supermarket just for a tin of pineapple. So we don't have pineapple on our pizza. So there's very little risk there, but the principle is the same. Now, when I go to the pantry, there's always at least 20 tins of pineapple there, and I can thank past Emma for that action. So that's like a tiny, tiny example, but if you did that throughout every area of your life as much as you can, if you have the capacity to do so, then you will feel as if you are gliding through life. And the times you forget to make the lunch the night before or purchase pineapple at the supermarket, it's okay, because you have a buffer there, either in time or in space, money or canned fruit. So over time, I've become more and more prepared in a few areas of my life, and I sort of flow in and out of that, not always perfect by any means, but quite often now I can look back and go, thanks past Emma, I'm really happy you did that. So treating your future self as a separate person can help you avoid putting things off. Another example is moving items or tasks along their journey whenever you get the chance. So let me explain what I mean by that. I forgot to put out the recycling bin a fortnight ago and it was full, and now I have a couple of cardboard boxes in the house of recycling stuff that needs to go into the recycling bin when it's emptied. I was thinking today about whether I should bring my recycling to work because I have more bins there that aren't full, and I think that's a good idea because otherwise it will just flow on and fill up my bin at home for another fortnight. So it's a task that I don't have to do, going home and getting my recycling and bringing it back to work, but clearing that backlog is going to be worthwhile. I have lots of things in my home that have this backlog, either because it just naturally builds up over time or because I've forgotten something or I've made an error somewhere that's ended up with, more things to do. It is that silent to-do list that's always there. There's a book called Goodbye Things, and that has that idea of the silent to-do list, the idea that everything we have in our home has to be dusted or maintained or processed in some way. And the minimalist lifestyle certainly aims to deal with that. The idea is the less stuff you have, the less stuff you have to deal with, which is certainly true. There is the other side of that, which is preparedness. You're going to have more stuff because you're planning for the things that you'll need in the future. But even within that framework of I'm going to have quite a bit of stuff because I'm a bit of a prepper, anytime I get the opportunity to deal with something, my future self is going to thank me for it. I can still organize, tidy, move things along, whenever there's an action associated with an item. So if you can have more areas of your life in the done or ready or resting state and not in the awaiting action state, there's something that's got to be done with this thing before you can use it or get rid of it, the better your life is going to be. I know, easier said than done. Just be more on top of things. It's my constant challenge in life, just staying on top of things. But I think that is a form of preparedness as well, because if you miss a day putting the bins out, you're not going to have too much of a build-up. Or if for some reason the rubbish truck doesn't come to empty your bins that week, you're not in dire straits surrounded by rubbish. Because it is a lot to expect that all the services we rely on are going to be around and are going to work as expected, on schedule, forever into the future. And that's also related to the concept of minimalism as well, just having less stuff. You certainly have less useless stuff, I'd say, and more stuff ready to go in the ready state. I think personal preparedness is also personal development. Some of the dialogue I see in the prepping space relates to self-help, at least as far as the individual preparedness goes. Personal development is all about moving towards success in measures that you deem as important for yourself, but it's not very other-oriented or community or service-oriented from what I've read. So for me, by prepping, I'm protecting myself and my family, but always with the idea in the back of my mind of helping others in some way, or at the very least not being a burden to others. Part of the point of self-care is to allow yourself to help others, to fill your own cup, because you can't pour from an empty cup, so they say. So when we talk about filling your own cup, I think most people consider it from an emotional and mental and energetic standpoint, but also I feel like it can be filling my cup if I can be well stocked physically and financially and in terms of my pantry, for example. And then I'm in the position to offer more to others. And everyone will draw the line in a different place. Some people will be earning 200k a year and still not feel like they have enough for themselves and not give anything to others. Other people are a lot less well off than I am, and instead of stocking their own fridge, they're giving all their extra cash to the local food bank, for example. But I've drawn the line for me and my own family, where I'm donating my time and money regularly, but also in order to do that, I've got a really strong focus on taking care of myself and my loved ones and working on getting my home and garden and life in general prepared for any difficulties ahead. So there is that question still, which I do address in my other Prepping for Collapse video, where I talk about how there's high-tech and low-tech ways to prep and ways that use more or less resources. So I think this is an important point to make because I feel like there's some prepping activities that take from others just because of the nature of scarce natural resources. And then there's some prepping activities that give to others. So that made me wonder, is regenerative prepping a thing? I suppose it's all wrapped up in like the homesteading, permaculture, resilience, regenerative ag sort of arena. So in some instances, the more I prepare, the more there is for others. Being fit and healthy doesn't take anything away from anyone else. In fact, the healthier I am, the less of a burden I am on the healthcare system, and I might be able to help someone in distress, carry them out of a burning building if I'm strong enough. So if you're fit enough to be able to physically assist someone, I think that's a really good thing. Another example, the more pumpkins I grow in my garden, the more I have to share with my neighbours. Having a thriving garden that attracts pollinators and birds and insects means I'm improving the area for my community as well. So if I steward the land, it will benefit myself now and in the future, and my family now and in the future, and the wider community as well. And also just the idea that if you're prepared, you're not taking from others in times of stress. So taking care of yourself now can mean that you don't then need to take from others in the future at times when things are more scarce. Now, there is that argument of, are things scarce now? Or are we in a time of abundance now? Is me stocking up on items for my pantry and, toilet paper and things like that, taking things from others so that I then have enough for myself and enough to share when disaster strikes? In the personal development and self-help space, it is similar as well to prepping and fitness, I've noticed too, because there is no definite end point. You can certainly have goals, but you're never like, I'm done, finished fitness, I'm fit now, I'm healthy now, I finished prepping, I'm ready for anything, I'm done. There is always progressions, there's always improvements, or at the very least maintaining and improving systems that you've built. So I currently am working through, in my mind, how all of these concepts are related to sense make for myself as I take from all these areas of thought. So we've got self-help and personal development, which is obviously very self-related. We've got prepping, which is self-related as well, but you've got pro-social prepping and community resilience too. And you've got this idea of what you do in the now versus what you do in the future. So anyway, I just find it really interesting trying to tease those concepts apart and find out how they're connected. So getting into the world of prepping and collapse awareness has helped me understand my own productivity and procrastination as well in two main ways. Firstly, learning about the larger issues we face can help with a sense of urgency and help to stop procrastination. You might first start learning about climate change, for example, and you think, oh, things are bad, but how long is this timeline and what do I do? And then you learn a bit more about the whole situation. You think, oh, we do have years to decades probably before something really bad happens. But a natural disaster could occur at any moment. Financial collapse could occur at any time. There are crises and collapses that are being discussed in the months to years time frame. So while today we're okay and tomorrow we're probably going to be okay, there is now this definite sense of urgency for me to do the hard things now and prepare as best I can, get informed, get ready so that I'm better able to face what's coming and help my family and my community through it. And for me, making these videos and watching a whole bunch of other videos on YouTube and having discussions with other people online definitely helps keep my procrastination at bay, because it helps me keep, that sense of urgency. Secondly, it has helped me work out what is really important in life, what's important to me. Gaining the knowledge of the global issues that humans face and understanding that what I took for granted could be lost quite quickly, and that the last 30 years of my life are likely going to be very different than the first 30 have been, helps me to place a different focus on what happens in my life and how very privileged I am. And this is a very privileged position to be in, to be considering all of these concepts in somewhat of an abstract way, because collapse hasn't affected me greatly yet. My town experienced its largest flood event ever a few years ago. I came out of it relatively unscathed. The community as a whole did not. But in general, we are still very, very lucky. Those who are struggling to survive, who are dealing with food shortages, hyperinflation, conflict, heat waves, they're not in the hypothetical, they're just dealing with what they've got in front of them. They don't have the privilege to sit here and talk about these concepts more in the abstract. In the past, I've looked into the minimalism and zero waste movements as well, and I've talked about that in a previous video, but it is interesting the similarities and differences between the movements as I learn about them more individually and try to put them together into my brain. I also noticed some similarities to the whole organisation and cleaning crowd. I'm not above watching a clean with me video as I potter about the house or just want to watch something that distracts me from all these bigger problems that we're talking about. But as I see the insides of a lot of people's homes in these videos, it gets me thinking again about minimalism, how much waste they're producing, how many suppliers or equipment they seem to have for a disaster or power outage or something. I look at how much their house might take to maintain. I'm always looking at how much of their own needs they're meeting inside their house, or whether they've just got a bunch of gadgets and they outsource everything to the market. I can't help it. And when I watch cleaning videos or hoarding videos especially, I see the extent to which modern industrial consumer capitalist society has eroded the well-being of so many people. So I'm not sure if there's a catchy way for all of these issues to be connected, or some overarching theme or lesson that we can learn from this as it pertains to collapse and preparedness. The main thing for me is the understanding to not live out of fear, but live out of love. And I think preparedness can be a way to show love for your future self, not based on being worried about the future. So this is more just me trying to mentally tease out how it all fits together, and particularly how what we learn, what action we take now affects our day-to-day well-being in the future. I've never regretted doing things for my future self. I never regret doing the dishes, even though I put it off so much. Sometimes the dishes don't get done after dinner, and I wake up the next morning, there's dishes everywhere, the place is a mess. I wonder how it got so messy so quickly. But I never regret sticking around in the kitchen after dinner, getting the dishes washed, but not just washed, also dried, put away, the sinks and benches cleared and wiped, because it is so nice to wake up the next morning and I can get started on the day. I think it's Fly Lady. There's a cleaning guru called Mrs. Fly Lady, I think. She talks about step 1 is to clean your sink, and it makes a difference. The number of times I've gone out to the kitchen in the morning and maybe the dishes are done, but there's all that gunk at the bottom of the sink because I didn't clean the sink, and I just think, past Emma, why couldn't you just fix that up last night? It would have taken 5 minutes. And now it's all stuck on and dried and gross. I see people saying a certain phrase more about extreme preparedness. They ask, why are you so scared? Why do you live in fear? Why do you live worrying about what might happen? But what I see, even the more extreme bunker preppers, they're usually not living in fear because they've taken action. I think that's where the difference lies. They can say, I don't know what's going to happen. Who knows what tomorrow is going to bring? I can't control the outside world, but I know that I've done what I can to protect myself and my family, and ideally my wider community, from whatever's going to happen or whatever might happen. And I think that's a mindset that we need more of, but it does require taking action now, not just sitting and watching YouTube videos. Hint, hint. I worry about people who, if we end up in another lockdown situation, there are many people who don't have more than a couple of days of food. I don't know if we've actually learned any lessons from COVID-19, and I hope to have a video on that eventually, because it's something we need to talk about. But I feel like we haven't learned what we could have learned, and many people are not prepared for issues like lockdowns, pandemics, other disasters. But the fact that I've been prepping means that I'm not as fearful. I'm going out of my way to learn and think about some of the more likely scenarios as well as maybe some of the worst case scenarios. It hasn't generally made me shiver in fear. It's made me emboldened to take action, and that action, as well as thinking clearly and rationally about these issues, has helped me to not be stuck in grief and despair for too long, but to get on with life, to be grateful for what I have now, be grateful for what I have the ability to do now, and know that whatever happens, I've done my best to reduce the suffering on the way down. So what do you think about all of this? The connection between what we do now to prepare for the future, is it based in fear and despair for you, or is it based in love? Is it that much different from movements like zero waste and minimalism or general personal development? You know, we identify a need, a change to be made in one's life, and take action to move your life towards a more resilient, prepared, ready state, regardless of what might be happening in the wider world. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop them in the comments below. I appreciate you for watching. Be safe and well, and I'll see you next time.